JMC 6000 here in the JMC Garage for this week's JMC Garage Talk. And this week we're going to go over and talk about the massive recall by Toyota that was just released this past week, actually a couple days ago, at the airing of this video, over their, I think it's called the FTS or 34A, whatever. Anyway, it's about the 3.4, 3.5 twin turbo V6 found in the Tundra, found in the Lexus GX. And what I want to do in this video is not so much talk about the recall, but I want to go over what Toyota addresses is the reason why they're recalling these engines. But I think it's a much deeper issue. And I want to go over it with video that I have here of this engine that is a part. I'm going to try and link all the videos in the description that I'm going to be using to discuss this engine. But I believe it's a much deeper issue. Now, if you've seen the multitude of videos on YouTube, mine is not the only one, but the multitude of videos covering this issue, what Toyota is saying in the recall is because of machining debris is the reason why their engines are failing. And with over 100,000 vehicles being recalled, that's a lot of engines that are known to maybe have machining debris, but I don't think that's the problem. I think it's a deeper issue in the way the engine is designed is the reason why they're failing. And what it is Toyota is pushing a lot more boost and a lot more pressure within the cylinder that's causing some apparent weaknesses to actually manifest themselves that they never would have before. We're starting to see that. So the machining debris is a farce. Toyota knows they have an issue and a problem with this particular engine, and I'm going to show you in my video what the issue is. Awesome. Are we ready to go, Amber? Mm-hmm. All right, let's go. So what we're going to do is, what I wanted to show you with is this first video is done by JRD Great. So JRD and Great. And he is a Toyota tech. He's actually tore apart this 3.4 liter. And one of the things I want to point out in this video, as I have my daughter come closer, is this is what they call the main bearing girdle assembly on the 3.4 liter. Now, he shows us in this video that this part of the main bearing gets super, super hot. And this spins the main bearing inside and causes the issue. As you can see, part of the crank is, you can see part of these connecting rod caps are kind of darkened as well. But what's happening is it's causing this issue, and this whole crankshaft is starting to rock back and forth in this girdle assembly. Now, as we all know, the construction of Toyota's 3.4 liter is actually cast aluminum. Both the block and this girdle assembly are machined together. Now, there is a process for main bearings that can be done. They either can be machined, main bearing caps either can be machined or they can be fractured or cracked. And I'll explain that process here in a little bit. But I believe what's happening, now this looks like a strong girdle assembly. This looks like, and if I go back a little bit in this video, we can kind of see how this assembly is kind of put together. As you can see, it's a strong assembly. You have four bolts on each main bearing cap that holds this girdle down to the block itself. And you would think there wouldn't be an issue here. I mean, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 of them, of course, being a V6. And you would think, and you also got cross bolting right here that holds this whole girdle assembly onto the block. But obviously there is an issue that Toyota is not really divulging into, but there's an issue happening with this main bearing that's causing it to spin and to turn and to have issues and problems. I believe it's an issue with this girdle assembly itself and the pressure and the heat and the PSI and everything that it's under. It can't handle it. It cannot handle it, and that's why we're seeing issues. Surprisingly enough, we're not seeing connecting rod issues. We're not seeing cracked pistons. We're not seeing anything like that, but we're seeing main bearing issues with this engine, even with this supposedly strong girdle assembly. Now, let me show you a V6 that has actually been out since 2015 by a company that I think builds one of the strongest twin turbo V6s to date. Now, There's some other issues with this V6 I'm not going to divulge into, but I'm talking about the whole block assembly and how it's designed, how it's built, and how it differs from the Toyota design. And as I know of to date, this company has not had any issues with spun main bearings or even engines that'll throw a connecting rod or anything like that. I'm sure there may be some out there, but you don't hear about issues like that or even issues early on with this particular engine. And the engine I'm referring to, as I go back to my other video, is the 2.7 Nano V6, also the same as a 3-liter, found in the Ford F-150, found in the Edge ST, it's found in the Lincoln Aviator, it's found in a multitude of vehicles, but this Ford Nano V6 has kind of a two-piece block design. Let me show you. So the Nano V6, the upper part of the block is actually made out of a compacted graphite iron, the same iron material that the 6.7-liter Power Stroke is made out of, and the main caps are made out of the same material. The lower part of the girdle assembly that Ford uses is actually aluminum. If you look at this girdle assembly, look how stout this girdle assembly is. In fact, let me blow it up here. Look how stout this girdle assembly is compared to what we saw in the Toyota. Now, this only parts of these bolts, this bolt, this bolt, this bolt, this bolt, this bolt, this bolt, and these back two bolts are what hold, plus a multitude of other bolts, are what hold this girdle assembly onto not only the main bearing caps, but also to the compacted graphite iron block. So you have strength there, but here's the difference with this engine. Let me kind of show you. And this is Eric from I Do Cars. So if you want to see this video, you can look at this as well. He took apart this engine. This particular engine suffered from a cracked valve, but we're not going to go into that right now. But as you can see, look at the design of the main bearing cap. Now, the main bearing cap is made out of the same material that the iron block is made out of. So this is compacted graphite iron. And one of the unique things about this engine is that the main bearing caps are what they call fractured or cracked. So when Ford mills or actually cast this engine block, they cast the main bearing caps with the block itself. It's all one casting. And then later on down the process, before they install the crankshaft, these main bearing caps are actually fractured in such a way they crack them off. They're not machined, they're actually cracked off. And the reason why they do that is they do it for strength. And when you do that, even though there's only two bolts holding these main bearing caps down to the block, they're actually stronger because they've been cracked or fractured in the assembly process versus being machined. And then the girdle assembly is bolted onto these caps. So you have a lot of rigid and strength in here. In fact, Eric of I Do Cars, when he talks about it, when he takes apart this engine, he talks about how strong the bottom end of this engine is, how rigid it seems. He said it's probably next to impossible to throw a rod out of this engine because of how strongly built the bottom end of this engine is. And we're talking about, it's only a 2.7 liter or the 3 liter. We're talking about a small displacement V6, but yet Ford designed it in such a way that we don't hear of any issues of thrown rods. We don't hear of any issues of spun mains. Even when these engines have been climbing up in miles, we don't have any issues that I know of, that I've even heard about this particular engine. In fact, this is probably one of the strongest, and I'm going to say this on camera, and I'm not because I drive a Ford, but I mean really how the engine's built. It's one of the strongest bottom end V6s out there known of today. Even stronger than Toyota's 3.4. And there's a difference in how they're built. There's a different mentality of how they're built. Ford built this engine to be a truck engine, number one. Number one, this engine was built to be a truck engine first and foremost. So that's why Ford designed it and built it the way they did. And it's a difference if you look at how this assembly is built versus, let's go back, versus the 3.4 in the Toyota. Just a totally, and you don't even see, and if you notice, let me show you this. So as you can see in this engine here, if you notice in this engine here, You see no cross, like you don't see no structural rigidity or anything like that in this girdle assembly. But yet, when you look at the 2.7 EcoBoost in that girdle assembly, look at all the structure and the cross and just the rigidity that this girdle assembly has compared to the Toyota design. I'm telling you right now, Toyota is putting out there that it's issues with the material, but I don't think it's issues with the foreign material getting into the main bearings. It's a bad design, and I don't see any way of how Toyota is going to fix this without totally redesigning the engine, or maybe putting in a strong main girdle assembly, a stronger, more stout main girdle assembly, something similar to this. Because I'm telling you right now, there's too much flex, there's too much. Toyota didn't design this engine very well, and now we're seeing the results of that. As more PSI, as more boost is getting put into this engine to put out the torque that it's putting out, we're seeing these engines suffer these catastrophic failures. And the recall that assembling material got into the main bearings, that's not the reason. The reason, I'm telling you right now, is it's a bad design block and girdle assembly. It cannot hold up to the pressure of being under in a twin turbo kind of a situation at V6. So, I mean, that's all this video is, and that's all I wanted to cover in this video. I don't know where to go, what Toyota needs to do. I mean, they don't even know of a fix yet of how Toyota is going to address these multitude of engines. That, I mean, are they going to inspect each and every one? Are they going to short block each and every one? Are they going to maybe address the girdle assembly of each and every one? I have no idea. Supposedly the fix won't be out to the end of July, but it's going to be interesting to see. But in this review and in this talk, I wanted to talk about the two engine different designs. Now, you may be like, well, John, the Ford 2.7 has a belt-driven timing or belt-driven oil pump. I get it. I know that. It's a belt-driven oil pump. Get over yourselves. It's fine. This engine had 130,000 miles before it cracked its valve. And the belt, even though it showed cracks in it, if you watch the video, it was still held up just fine. And I know of plenty of people with 2.7s, 2018 and newer, that have over almost 200,000, if not over 200,000 miles, and they never touched the oil timing or the oil bathed belt for the oil pump. Never touched it. And they're still going farther than 200,000 miles. So I'm just saying, I think people are making a big deal out of the oil-bathed belt, even though it's not so much of a big deal. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the strength of a block between the two engines and the two different designs. And I'm telling you right now, Toyota's design is inferior to even this right here. This is a proper design. And I think Toyota may need to change the way this 3.4 is designed in order to remedy the problem of the spun bearings, the spun main bearings, especially the front one there. And hey, if you guys, I'd love to hear your insight on this. If I'm totally off base, just let me know. Again, I've worked on engines all my life. I know how engines are designed. I know a good design when I see one, and I know a bad design when I see one. And unfortunately, you would think that this Toyota design would be good, but as you can see, we're having major issues. And I know Toyota did the recall for only 2022 and 2023. They didn't cover 2024, yet we're hearing of 2024 Tundras that are having this exact same spun bearing issue. So it's definitely a big problem, and we're going to see how this shakes out, plays out. Anyway, leave a question, comment, like, and subscribe. Hit the bell notification. I upload every single Wednesday morning and also every single Saturday afternoon with jmcGarage Talk. Appreciate all the comments. I love to hear you guys' insight on this issue with the Toyota 3.4 liter found in the Tundra and the Lexus LX and other vehicles. You guys be blessed. Have a wonderful day, and we'll catch you on the next one.